I make hats one at a time from home, from a workshop / garden shed. I started not in order to start a business necessarily. It was more to have a creative outlet. I'd come from working in a graphic design studio, and then with the birth of our second child, I stopped working in the studio and stayed at home with the kids. I just needed something to kind of keep that going, and to play around with graphics, creative brands, like how would this kind of go? It was just a sort of fantasy, really. I had sort of manufacturing skills from when I'd left school and went to college and learned to pattern cut and manufacture things. And a hat was a very accessible, on the kitchen table, small pieces of fabric, you could work it. It didn't take a long time to kind of get from thinking of it to coming out with one and going, right, how do we do this better? So initially, it was just that, really. It was a sort of, it was a business idea, but without that pressure of thinking, oh, I have to create a business. So I made a bit of a brand because I enjoyed doing that, made a hat because I wanted a hat, set up an Instagram account because it's free and you can kind of start to, work on this visual language, photograph stuff, get it out there. I initially started on a free e-commerce Ticktail, and there's various, obviously there's still, loads of e-commerce kind of platforms you could go on, and this one was Swedish, and I love the Scando stuff, so I was like, okay, it's free and it's Scando, so I'll go there. And it had nice, clean, modern looking templates to begin with, so it was really a sort of easy thing to do, around kind of bringing up 2 kids and the sort of various things of, home life. And that just slowly kind of built on, and then you get a bit more time because the kids go to nursery or go to school, and, you sell a few more. I think the first year I maybe sold 5 hats. So if I'd have gone into thinking this is a viable, income stream, I'd have probably just thought, well, this isn't, let's look at somewhere else. But fortunately, I suppose I went into it without the pressure of this needing to be anything other than just an outlet. And a couple of years down the line, it's like, okay, this is a bit more serious. This can kind of bring things in. I'm selling more. So you think, let's have a bit more of a focus on what we're doing, be a bit more professional. So probably about 2 years before the word professional kind of came into my vocabulary.
That is dead interesting though, because suppose like most people when they start a business, it's like, right, this is what I'm going to do now, and this needs to work, and they might give themselves, say, a year and say, or 6 months. If I'm not turning over, like, if I'm not paying myself in 6 months, I'm going to have to give this up. So the fact that it grew organically, that's dead interesting, that that pressure wasn't there.
Because as things have gone on, and your kind of life sort of situations, family and this and that changes, the pressures have come on. And there's, there are wobbles, as there always are. But if I'd have had those pressures at the beginning, it probably wouldn't have got to here. So it was just having it as a, there was nothing there pressure wise. So that helped it ease in and find itself, So it gave it that room to kind of, I suppose, make the mistakes and play. It wasn't a sort of serious thing. It was a play kind of thing.
That's it, because it is dead easy to put that pressure on yourself. I think I got made redundant from a job a few years ago. I thought, right, you know what, I'll go freelance. I'll just do some freelance writing. Did it for like 3 months and then bottled it completely. Like the first month or 2, the work was flying in. It's like, this is brilliant. Month 3, it dried up. I was like, I can't do this. So it does take a lot to sort of make that step, doesn't it? Just on the brand thing then, to pick up on that, obviously the design element is important. You do t-shirts from time to time as well. When you're doing the branding, how important is it that you get that brand right, and how did you get the brand right? So obviously you've gone through a few iterations of the logo and stuff. The name's always stayed the same. The ethos has always stayed the same. How have you sort of developed the brand over the years?
Well, I came out of, a good branding studio in Liverpool, shout out Smiling Wolf. But I was kind of, you'd worked on brands and there's a great creative kind of bit of it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of politics, and kind of pleasing. And everybody at the end of the day just wants something that looks cool and does the job.
Yeah.
But then when we go into this kind of client meeting, I've got to tie in this cool thing that we all just think looks cool and I've done because it looks cool and it's going to work. But we've got to go, well, your brand values are inclusion and and I was like really kind of over that really. I was happy to kind of go, I don't have to do any of that. So the initial brand was hand-drawn and there was, I didn't make any of those decisions. And it's like, no, anti-brand, da, da, da. I always liked the DFA Records, Death from Above.
Yeah.
Because their logo is just like it's scribbled, and I always, I imagine the sort of, this like meeting of them. We need a logo for the record label, and someone scribbled it down. They've gone, yeah, that'll do, and they're like, okay, I'll go on the computer, and they're like, no, that'll do, and this sort of like this purity of just an idea, and it becomes.
Yeah.
So I suppose I was trying to channel, that, punk or looseness towards branding and going, we don't need any of this. And then a couple of years down the line, you're like, it would have been helpful if I'd have made some other brand choices or set certain things in place. I mean, because it's called the Long Shot Experiment.
Yeah.
Which allows me room. One, it doesn't sound anything specific. It could be a film, it could be a band.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of room, and the experiments as a word, allows play, allows experimentation, allows things not going right, and let's move on. And then it's this year, 9 years in, because I was like Factory Records and that, Peter Saville, and like the first poster was FACO 1. I think maybe they've kind of rewritten certain elements of the history to go, oh, this was the first one. But it's lovely cataloguing.
It's a nice chronology, hasn't it?
Throughout all of these things, everything has this code.
It's not just the records. It's the nightclub. It's other things.
Everything it can go into. You've got this sort of cataloguing thing. So 9 years in, I was like, oh, EXP. It's like, oh, I should have done that at the beginning. That would have been a great kind of naming construct. And if I'd built that, but like I say, it's sort of, it wasn't kind of put in with that pressure, and maybe I'd have got bogged down and never started it because I'd have overthought, as I tend to do, every element and kind of not got there. So there's that sort of looking back and thinking, oh, what's, brand wise, it would have been helpful to kind of go just more structure. But actually, I was able to do that down the line and go, actually, now we need to think, because I'm writing things, what's a sort of body copy typeface? How are we going to present this type of, message? I think working in, fashion allows a lot of mobility anyway, the sort of, I would like to say, I create clothing, fashion is the sort of clothing that everybody needs, and then there's fashion, which is as an industry, but because of its constant turnaround and this idea of, new seasons, new ideas, it allows you to reinvent yourself. So I think brand wise, if I was a bank and I kept changing the brand every 2 months, there's an issue. As a fashion brand or a more creative kind of product, you have a bit more room to do that. So so though I would say I should have done that properly from the beginning, it's sort of, I was able to kind of build the brand over a longer period. And I suppose people like yourself who've kind of been viewing it and been a customer for over a long time, you've seen that. And there's a sort of honesty, you know, we change our, you know, the things that we see a new film or we hear a new band and you think, oh, I'm excited about that. I want to bring that into what I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, not being so strict on this is how it must be. Yeah, it allows me to keep feeding in the new things that excite me.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, you do need to do that, as you say, working in fashion or clothing, you do need to be able to evolve because you can't just keep pumping out the same thing time after time. There's, you know, and I think you've I don't know if this is a new thing, but I've just noticed it recently that you're bringing in the experiment thing now. So the new range of hats is experiment 1 and 2, and you sort of started bringing that in to give yourself that sort of freedom to.
Yeah, you know, and that to a certain, like a couple of reasons behind those kind of things being called experiments. I'm a very small scale maker, you know, and I only have to make one. So I have the idea, I have the fabric, make one, shoot it, put it online. If no one ever buys that hat, you know, if it's not successful, then that one becomes my hat, you know, and we can move on. So I kind of thought, well, at the very beginning, I just used fabrics that I had, you know, and it was sort of, you know, this one would be this colour and this one would be that. And as you move on and you think, okay, actually, I want to present professionally.
Yeah.
So I start to look and buy fabrics, you know, so I'm going to buy 2 meters of this, 2 meters of that, and this is a colour range, and this is my season. So I kind of slipped into the fashion industry, the way they dictate things should work. And I'm still, obviously, I'm not working 18 months ahead. You know, I work very directly.
Yeah.
So if I see, I think, oh, that'd be a good colour for now, I can do it straight away. But I did start to kind of work in that, or looking at a larger kind of thing, and it brings pressures in that you think I've got to sell a certain amount because I've bought these, and it also brings the pressure of, okay, now that it's, you know, we're changing it, you know, it's September.
Yeah.
I've got to have a whole load of new colours. And coming toward the last couple of years have been a bit slower, and fortunately I've been having a bit of like wholesale work, so other small brands coming to me and asking me to make, you know, sort of batches for them, which balance out that kind of thing. When that's given me the sort of ability to, you know, I'll make 20, 30, 50 hats in sort of 1 or 2 colorways for someone else.
Yeah.
So when I come back to my hats, I want to play again.
Yeah.
So I kind of think, rather than going, okay, let's, you know, say for the next 3 months, we're only going to do these, dig back in there, you know, I've got loads and loads of fabrics there, and think I've got enough to make 4 or 5 hats. Let's just do a few. And then from a brand sort of sales perspective, I think let's call this, let's kind of frame this in a way. This is an experiment. Make it more explicitly limited.
Yeah.
Even though I might sell only 5 of one that isn't sort of presented as a limited one.
Yeah.
You know, I've got more, so I could sell 10, 15, 20. With those where there's just a small amount of fabric, kind of framing it in this is an experiment, just gave me another kind of way to talk about these smaller things, and also to allow me to break out of that, oh gosh, and I need it to be, you know, I need to see you know, this season's kind of everything, and it has to fit together, and if it's a t-shirt, it's got to be the same colour as this. Saying, no, this is an experiment, allowed me to work with what I've got. Yeah. And to just go, actually, I just think that looks really cool. You know, and so I can have the main sort of, you know, I'll do so many Felix and Bob and this and that, and here and there I can just throw in these experiments. Yeah. And it is explicitly playful, different, fun. So it kind of, it works within the brand kind of language, but it sort of allows me to, I suppose, in those moments where I think, oh God, this, you know, and I need a bit of looseness. Yeah. Well, it gives me that as a, you know, feels more creative than certain other aspects of what I'm doing.
Yeah, because like I say, you know, you do sort of small batch stuff and one-offs and that, and being creative, if you're having to put out 50 hats to someone, 50 hats to another person all the time, probably get quite stifling, I think. So the fact that you've got the room to do that's like really good. Just want to touch on social media and the way you use that and sort of how you've built your business up over the years, really. So obviously you say you started, it was just like, I'll have a go with this. This might be good. You use Instagram. You don't use Twitter anymore, do you? You used to.
No,
Yeah.
I put it briefly, but yeah, it doesn't fit for me.
It's a cesspit. But yeah, you use Instagram, you've got your newsletter. How's that grown and how's that allowed you to grow, or is it a lot of word of mouth as well? Sort of how do you, I don't think you explicitly market your business in the fact of like you're sitting down like marketing department, right? How am I going to market things? How am I going to put this out there? It does seem very organic, like the business itself, but how's like social media and the newsletter, how does that help grow your business?
The social media was the first, and it's immediate.
Yeah.
And you can, for up until 2020, I would more often than not, messages would be we.
Yeah.
And it would be, you're presenting a brand. And that's, in the same way of picking a name rather than it being Michael Holmes hats.
It's got a ring to it though.
Yeah. But, there's some people who are, this is my name, this is what I produce, and this is how I'm going to present it. Maybe culturally, coming from skateboarding and this kind of thing. So it was always, my ambition was always to start. I would call it a label then.
Yeah.
It was never a brand. I think brand for these smaller projects is a newer thing, and is almost us being kind of brought under the you will be a brand and this is how brands work. It was always, I want to start my own label, a t-shirt label, a skate label, and it's kind of had a different ring and a different kind of ethos. Instagram just allowed that, you presented this thing and I was hidden behind it. So I could do things that maybe if I was in front, I wouldn't feel that confident to do. And it was and you were able to present something that seemed a little bit bigger, still whilst doing something that you were saying is small and controlled. But yeah, I didn't have to stand there and kind of be, this is what I'm doing. And it wasn't until 2020, obviously we all know what happened around then. And I just kind of got on, and again, through social media, I thought, I'll do just to video and just talk.
Just want someone to talk to.
Yeah, I think it was. And the response was really good.
Yeah.
And it was, it was lovely for me, to get that, a positive response. And you realise how people want to respond to a person.
Yeah.
That we like brands, but certainly on a small brand, and a brand that plays, or a person that plays on niches.
Yeah.
I love subcultures, even ones I've not been involved with. It's those kind of pop culture kind of references, these little bits that, that just mean something to someone. And it's that if you know, you know.
Yeah.
I can put something out or name a hat, a particular thing, and it's nice, so people go, oh, that's a nice hat and it's called this, whatever. But then when you go, I understand, I know why you've called it that, I know what it references. You've got
Was the new one Haine?
Yeah,
So.
Absolutely. Because I couldn't think of a name for it, and I had this hat. I'm like, oh, I love this, but I can't think of any. So that again through social media,
put that out.
And I think through that, revealing myself, sort of, I suppose the Wizards of Oz, coming behind the curtain and saying, I'm just like you, because by that time I knew that from the sort of DMs or the emails I get from people, with the same people, generally we sort of, we share a lot of kind of common backgrounds or likes, so I thought, I can just put out that little question on social media. I've got this, it looks cool, just can't think of a name. And I got just all kinds of like random names, but a lot that came through. There are a few kind of duck references because of the longer bill on the cap. I'm a Europhile, so you know, I love anything. Like I said, I chose my e-commerce platform because it was Scandinavian, you know, so I kind of love that exoticism.
Yeah.
I'm a Scout and married to a Mancunian. There are no more forbidden fruit. You know, I enjoy that exoticism of other cultures, you know. So a few came with sort of, you know, references to France or Italy, you know, because it had the long little bit there, like a ponytail, and someone mentioned the football, I think maybe.
Oh, was it what's his name? I've forgotten. He's like Fiorentina and Juventus.
Not
Baggio.
Yeah, you know, because of his ponytail.
Yeah.
So all these like funny references came in. So it led me onto this sort of like a bit French, a bit Euro. And then it was the duck, which I thought, there's the famous scene in Latin where he's doing the Robert De Niro to himself in the mirror. And I always remembered this, my, you know, poor French. I had him saying canard, which I knew was duck. So I'm like, oh, great. It's got a duck reference. It's French. It's cool. I'll call it Vince.
Yeah.
And then I've actually, geek that I am, I've got the handwritten, the manuscript of from the film with all of like the notes on and this and that. So I thought better, you know, check my references, because that's a great thing about social media, is when I've put things out which are wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of the t-shirts I've done reference lyrics, and I might have like got a word wrong in the lyrics, and someone will message and say, you know, that's
you get told
right,
quickly, don't you?
Yeah, you know, and it's, again, you know, it's brilliant, and it starts that, you know, they only get in touch in that respect, I think, because they care and they think, I like what you're doing, and
it's not snarky.
This is gonna come out wrong. I know what you're doing, but that's not right, you know. So I thought, I better check my references. So looking here, and rather than canard, duck, it's conard, which I think is arsehole. So I'm like, oh no, like, but I was in there and I was like, right, you know what, I'm just going to say, this is what it's called because of this, and I was wrong. Yeah, but it's still called this. Yeah.
Because it's still a cool name, and it's a good reference.
Yeah, so it's Vince, and it's, well, next year is 30 years since it came out.
Is it?
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. So, I mean, groundbreaking, you know, fantastic film. So that's my rambling on social media, but really useful. Like, I think when I was able to understand that, these people are me, to a degree, you know, and they're not gonna hate me or hate me, you know. That sort of first reveal and getting a positive thing opens up that how I then kind of engage with people. Yeah, you know, and there was a trust then. I could trust that I could put myself out there.
I guess there must be a nice community around it as well. You know, not necessarily people that have met each other, but everyone who sort of knows you, chats to you. It's a nice little community feel, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a chap, Daniel, that got in touch with me, and he said, Les has said, you know, so that's funny that I'd not known that the two of you knew each other, and then so there are these other things that go on. The newsletter, because I think, you know, Instagram isn't having the reach. Obviously, I have Instagram as a business account, because I can tag products, you know, and that's useful. Yeah. If I've got something new, it's an easier way for someone to get, you know, to the site. Yeah. But I think because it's a business account, then Instagram looks at it and thinks, well, we can make money out of this. So therefore, unless you're advertising,
you've got to spend
I think it suppresses, you know, the reach. The newsletter, I found that, you know, you sign up for various things, but I'm quite quick. I like a tidy inbox, you know. So if it's just coming through and it's just advertising, I kind of lose interest. I'll unsubscribe. And it was the Hyatt Denim newsletters. I think they have a product one, and then they have one which is like, you know, there's a certain amount of, you know, what we've seen this week.
Some stuff
change makers or something in design, something in tech. So I'd never unsubscribe from that, because it was always something that I would find that I would like, and it wasn't leading me to their site. Yeah, you know, it just showing me things that were interesting. So I'd done a newsletter kind of on and off, just putting product out. But then I thought, of those that I continue to subscribe to, it's almost not because of that brand, it's because of what we share in references and likes and what, you know, I can find from it.
Yeah.
So I thought that's something I'm going to build in, you know, to mine, that there's always, what did I start it with? Look, listen, read and think.
Yeah.
Occasionally it, you know, it becomes look. You know, if I can't, the think is often, you know, the sort of next step that I'd like to make on the newsletter actually is kind of reaching out to, you know, other people and maybe a monthly sort of guest.
Yeah.
Look, listen. So again, it's sort of, it takes off the pressure of finding those four things, and also it's someone else's perspective on it, you know, so it's music I wouldn't have come across, it's a thing I wouldn't have maybe thought about. So I'd like to open that up. And that, I think, is generally sort of 50% engagement, you know, from I use MailChimp.
Yeah, that's really good.
You know, so it's, you know, people opening it is around that.
Yeah.
And then the clicks from that. So it's, you know, and the clicks, again, may not be straight to my site, but it keeps them opening my newsletters because they found something interesting. So that, a much smaller number of people signed up to the newsletter, but the engagement is much higher, you know, and it's sort of, it's, you know, it's a different sort of thing. So I wouldn't stop the Instagram because it's something I can throw out. I think stories is useful if you just think, oh, here's a little thing. I haven't figured how I'm going to present it brand-wise yet. Yeah. So I can be a bit quicker. Oh, this is cool. You know, so there's different sort of...
people like that lo-fi thing as well. They don't really want the polished, like, people posing in front of a Ferrari kind of thing. Yeah. The fact that you're in your workshop, like just saying, right, here we go, this is what I've got coming up.
Yeah, you know,
it's just nice to see, like, all right, that's you in your environment, this is what it's really like.
Yeah, and I do try to polish things. You know, there is some attempt in there. But yeah, you know, I know through doing it and through, you know, getting to know this, I suppose, your community, your customer base, that, you know, you can just share things on I got a load of wood delivered the other day, cut a tree down around the corner. You go, all right, mate. So we got like half a tree dropped on the drive the other day. And then I'm like, oh, the colours of this are gorgeous.
Oh yeah, so was that the bark?
Yeah, you know, and it kind of looks like camo. Yeah. Because it had been May the 4th, me and my son, who was 10, he'd never watched Star Wars. So over the weekend we'd watched, obviously, episode 4 to begin with. Yeah. A New Hope.
That's the only way to start, by the way. Don't start at 1.
Yeah. So yeah, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And of course I watch it for the, you know, the clothes, Hoth and Endor clothes.
Yeah, they're the best, aren't they?
Ridiculous. So the camo in Endor, I've just been like, how can I create this? And then these trees come and it's, you know, this, I don't know if it's a birch, whatever it is, but it looks like a camouflage. Yeah. So yeah, the story kind of, you just go, oh, this is cool. And kind of, you get this sort of thing out, you know, when you, I think staying relevant is the wrong term, but just kind of, you know, kind of keeping there in, because of the nature that is a bit of a game you've got to play in order to keep in people's sort of timelines or whatever. So you can very quickly do it. Whereas I've tried with the, I don't know what it's called, that you sort of, your main kind of posts, when I put those up, I try and, you know, have a bit of a format so it does kind of come out.
So when you look at the whole sort of grid,
that's it, you know, try to be at the moment, and I'll shake out, this is
it's quite difficult, isn't it? I try that sometimes. We do it every Christmas with like an advent calendar, and it makes up a big picture. Yeah. So we do that every Christmas, but then trying to keep on top of it to do it every week, especially when you think, oh, I'll put that up, that'll look good. And then it's all over the shop, but I don't know, I don't treat it like that. Yeah. I think from a branding perspective, again, I think the idea is that you'll have a very consistent looking grid. But as you say, when you're just thinking, oh, this will be interesting, it's impossible to keep on top of it.
And you've got to, I suppose, again, thinking of how you build your brand, is you've got to build in areas to it where you can be loose. Yeah. You know, and that still looks okay. You know, so it's sort of, if somebody's putting together a brand, kind of, guidelines are great, but, you know, rules are there to break. You know, so you've got to know how it should be, so that when you need to kind of slide it or twist it, you do it within sort of parameters. But you've got to allow a certain area where you can be looser or where you can evolve
Yeah.
potentially, that you go, yeah, this is working now, but we want to go a little bit different. So that's brand wise, that's how I would think of it, is kind of work in an area where, oh, it could go like that or it could go like that, and if you've got a little bit of kind of wiggle room rather than, the logo must always go here and our model must always face this way and be dressed like this, because you obviously depending on your industry, but circumstances change, your likes or your direction can go somewhere else. You've got to be able to sort of have a little bit of wiggle room.
Just back to business then, what's been your biggest achievement, do you reckon?
I would think continuing, and yet not kind of being knocked by the what. I mean, I think last year I put I'm looking for work on my LinkedIn.
Oh, right, okay.
Where it's because of salary seems like a lovely thing.
Holiday pay, all that.
Like obviously things didn't come up in that way, and then things changed within how the Long Shot was going, and so I'm like, oh, actually, I can see where this is going. But I'm 9 years now. And that's a long time. So I think that's my achievement is continuing and kind of sticking with it and really sticking. I've tried different things, like I say, you mentioned the t-shirts, which I've not done so much now, and I like the idea of them, but I'm not quite. It's sort of like, what do I add? Do I want another of my t-shirts? And if I'm not sure if I do, then probably someone else doesn't necessarily need it. So it's sort of, going on and trying things, but actually the core is what it was at the very first hat. It's still, so kind of having steered it in a way that, that is solid for me, and I can keep going and keep enjoying. I suppose is the thing, it's still exciting. And that's important, to me. Anyway.
You can't put a price on that, really, can you? What have you found, like, sort of like cost of living crisis, energy bills? It's been problems like at home for everyone, but for a lot of business as well. Have you been affected by that so much, or?
Because of my situation, because of my size, and I work from home in the the workshop there, so I'm quite light on what I use.
Overheads like that,
Saying that, obviously in the winter, I mean, I only kind of bring out a little like oil heater, but it's an electric one. And I would first put on the fleece pants and the long johns and 3 jumpers before I would put it on. So it does it. I have Raynaud syndrome.
Oh, right, okay.
In my hands, so actually it would be better to maintain a consistent temperature, coming in and out of the house and things like that. And then you find gloves that are fingerless because I need to work with my hands. So it has an effect in that. In a previous, before we were here, we had a flat, and then at the back of the flat, they all had a sort of like a brick shed. With no electric in there. And I bought quite a good solar-powered lamp there because so I could work into the evenings. So my lighting is actually solar-powered.
Decent,
and looking at this and thinking, oh, actually, how I've it's a slight pitch on the roof, and you think, actually, I should look into solar energy because I get good light from where it comes from, and I could run all of that off solar power, really. So
it's a bit of a big outlay at first, isn't it? You look at it and you're like,
that's the balance, and sort of being that I as a sole trader, you kind of do everything, so I do social media, I make the things, I liaise, I chase it, you're doing everything. So adding another thing on because I'm sure there's funding, here or there, that you might be able to get to help with that. But that kind of, finding the time to look into those things is a sort of another job that is easily slid off the pile because you think, I could just get on with the practicalities of making this, for this customer that's there. But I think that would be, good from from all perspectives, really. I don't present as a sustainable brand. I try to do things as best I can, as I think
Well, you've used offcuts and stuff in the past, haven't you? And
Yeah.
things like that. That all sort of...
you try and...
I'd say the perception, certainly from my point of view, is that even though you don't present as one, you can see that you kind of are one.
Yeah,
because
I
as you
try
say, you
and-
use the offcuts and things like that.
try and make better decisions.
Yeah.
Without being the sort of a dogmatic approach
Yeah.
of this must be this and that. Now I know other brands do that, and there's great decisions. There's a girl, Neve, as a brand, Nemsi, and I was reading something on her reason she never uses zips, and it's like a button fly and this and that. She said basically, if the button falls off, most people can replace a button.
Yeah.
If the fly goes, it's a difficult thing. Where do I go and get it done? How much is it going to cost? I can't do it myself. So it was sort of, it was a really practical kind of way. It wasn't a sort of preachy kind of way of, oh, this is a better way. It was actually because this is easier when you need to fix it, so it gives it a bit more life. So there's lots of ways of looking at that. So you try and make the best choices, but I don't I'm wary of ever using that sort of that as a way of talking about things, because I'm not in every way.
And it can look quite cynical, I suppose. If you start sort of riding that wave, it can look a bit cynical. But there are some like big denim brands that Levi's do it, and UD certainly do. They offer free repairs and stuff now to try and be a bit sustainable. They're massive brands, so whether that's like a cynical thing, like saying, look what we're doing, or it's a genuine thing, I don't know. But
I think, obviously it's a business decision because they've got workforces and, everything's got to be weighed up.
Yeah.
But it's helped Patagonia do the worn wear things, and people will talk about, I took a coat in, had a rip, and you give me a new coat, woo! I'm not sure that works every time. But it's just, I think that's it. You just got to try and make the best choices you can.
Yeah.
Within what you're doing, and some people can stick to it and do them. Try and do everything. Whereas maybe it's selfish. I want to do what I want to do, and find the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
Rather than go the other way round.
Keeps it real, doesn't it?
I think, and that's, I come from, a kind of skateboarding background, and that's sort of ingrained this, and potentially, like a kind of Liverpool kind of thing. Talking about skateboarding in Liverpool, there were some kids, a lad from over your side, who I think was absolutely brilliant, incredible, but was very, I would say, too humble.
Okay.
He had success. There's obviously Jeff Rowley, who's from Egbert, who had incredible success, and I understand that now, looking back on his. He'd been very good at football when he was younger, and I think that discipline of training.
Yeah.
Skateboarding nowadays, people go to train.
It's an Olympic sport now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, people call us, but I find it very.
You couldn't really call it Olympic lifestyle, could you? That sounds
it
that
doesn't
sounds
work
completely different.
in the same way. But at that time, late 80s, early 90s, that discipline to train. We'd go into town, midday on a Saturday and Sunday, meet up and, sit on the care, and play. And he would come and play with us, but we knew that Jeff had been in at 9 o'clock and he'd had a list of spots he wanted to go to and things he wanted to try. He had a real sort of determination and discipline, and he has become, it's worked for him.
Yeah.
He's succeeded massively. But other people, and maybe it's this sort of like a humble, not sort of wanting to be a big head kind of thing.
You get shot down quickly, don't you, where we're from?
Yeah, and it's a good thing because it keeps people, but then in other situations, you kind of look at people and think, oh, if maybe you could have just gone, you know what, I don't care if they're going to call me a divvy because I've gone out there and gone, will you please sponsor me or this or that, you know, there's a balance. Again, it's dogma, isn't it? You know, you kind of, the subcultures are looser now, so you can move between. Whereas, you know, then it was, you know, if you were you had to kind of keep it real. You had to be, you know, what was expected of you. And it's those people who kind of moved out of that a little bit, maybe kind of did best or found themselves earlier, perhaps. Moving away, growing up and I am able to kind of, you know, be my true self, while still kind of being rooted to those. I want to be right with things. I don't want to be like disingenuous. But also, I've just found out that I really love K-pop, or, you know, and I can move in there and own it. You know?
It's like you said about the brand thing, just to tie it back to that. It's like, if you've got your brand guidelines, that's sound, but don't be so dogmatic that you can't like push in other ways. So that all brings that round nicely full circle. Just to finish then, if someone was starting out a business, what one piece of advice do you reckon you'd give them?
I'd say definitely, if someone's wondering whether or not to, I'd say do it, because you don't want to live with don't knows. It's really hard because I don't know that I'd say be playful. You know, allow yourself, make sure this is something that you will probably do, or depending on the business necessarily, but something that you're interested in beyond it just being, you know, paying you. You can do jobs that do that, where you can just go to work, get paid, and, you know, that'll work for you. I think if you're gonna run your own business, it's something that you've got an interest in, or you enjoy, or you would do, even if it's, or even when it's not paying the bills, you know, because they're the times that you've got to stick through some storms. You know, even when you have this fantastic thing, there's ebbs and flows, and you've got to find something that do you have to love it? I don't know, but you have to like it enough that you're going to continue doing with it when it's tough and it's a slog, as well as when it's like really, you know, your wings are just a full stretch and you're flying, you know. So definitely have something that, you know, you're passionate about, that you enjoy, regardless of it making you money.